Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel and to part 3 of the New Player's Guide series. So everything that we're going to be talking about in this video is to do with gear. And so I think that one of the most common questions that people have when they first come into a game is, okay, I have this baseline character, how do I actually augment them? How do I actually make this character do more and more and more? And that is an extremely valid and extremely good question because various games are going to have different types of progression systems. If you're coming from a different MMORPG like World of Warcraft or Elder Scrolls Online, you generally have a good feel that equipment is going to be a huge factor in how your character is going to do. That same property transfers over this way. But don't worry, I'm going to introduce this as if we have no baseline understanding on this. If this content helps you and you want to help support the channel and me, then please consider hitting that like button and smashing that subscribe button. Am I doing this right? So as a quick overview on all the gear that you can have a weapon, and then some classes have an offhand weapon, but every class will have a particular distinct weapon for only that class. Take for instance, the summoner is going to use a grimoire, you're going to be seeing white mages using staves, then you're going to see monks using fist type of weapons, you're going to see gladiators using sword and shield, and then you're going to see dark knights using great swords. But ultimately, every single weapon in this game can only be used by a particular class, such as sword and shield is distinctly for gladiators and templars, and great swords is explicitly for dark knight. Guns are likewise explicitly for the machinist. And likewise, I just want to cap off this by saying that offhands are also used for crafting and gathering classes, as well as the gladiator. You're not going to generally see any other form of offhand weapons for anything else in this game. Everything else is just going to have a single weapon. Even if you look at the ninja that uses 2 weapons, one in each hand, and even if you look at the monk that has 2 fists, these are still going to be under one primary weapon. So it's actually very strange for you to have an offhand weapon in this game. Next up, we have the following pieces on what we call the left-hand side, which generally makes up armor pieces. So this is going to include headgear, body gear, gloves, pants, and boots. The only thing that stands out here as an exception is going to be belt. And so you're going to also see that referred to as being on the left-hand side, where it does definitely contribute a significant amount of stats, but it is widely regarded as being more of an accessory, so this is the only thing that really breaks this rule here. Then on what we call the right-hand side is we have an offhand, which is, as I said before, a very rare thing, so you will not see this on most classes in this game. But then we have all the rest being accessories. And so these include things like earrings, necklace, wrist, and then 2 rings, one for the right hand and one for the left hand. Then finally, to cap this off, is what we have at the very bottom of this right hand section, which is something that we call a job crystal. And so this is going to be something that new players do not initially get, but when you choose a particular class at the start of this game, you are started off as something like a gladiator, or an archer, or a marauder, or you are started off as, what's another good example, like a thaumaturge for black mage, conjurer for white mage. But those are not what you're going to normally be able to find much search results on for. Like if you refer to like my ultimate summoner guide, that is not referring to an arcanist class. In fact, I don't even think I have that in the tags. But what you have in this game is that each class can go into one different job, with the exception being the arcanist, which can go into either scholar or summoner. But if you are going for the gladiator class, then that gladiator class can go and become a templar. If you're going on marauder, that gets a job crystal that turns it into a warrior. And so it's definitely a different type of progression system. Like, you will be able to get your full set of skills if you have a job crystal equipped. It's not going to really radically change your class, except Summoner and Scholar, where Scholar's going to be a healer based class, and then Summoner's going to be a DPS based class. But for every other one, it's just an extension of what you currently have. Like the Archer, when you equip the job crystal for a bard, will just become a bard, but there isn't like a sniper class for that one. It's just going to be like a linear progression. And so generally speaking, job crystal is just something that you equip for your particular class, and then it's done. You get this just by following your particular job's quest line, and then you go through a series of trials, and then you get this job crystal. Aside from that, this isn't something that you really look to upgrade or do anything with, but should rather be thought of as just a way that you can actually unlock the rest of your skill set for your particular class. It's really nothing more. It doesn't add any attributes, it doesn't really add any stats. I mean, some people will look at the theory and be like, technically this has a few more stats. It's not something that you should be worried about as a newer player. That's like super in-depth theory crafting. The main moral of the story is when you get your job crystal for the class you play, just equip it. And then you're going to notice, instead of a gladiator, I'm called a Templar, and now I have new skills. Or instead of an archer, I'm now called a bard. Yay. And that's about all that I could really say on that. That's as deep as that system really goes. So now that I've introduced you to all of these different pieces of gear, let's actually go into depth on weapons. And so I'm going to pull up the Paladin weapon, which if you'll see in a bit, it's Gladiator. You can see that it says at the very top, unique, untradeable. So generally speaking, as soon as you equip a piece of gear, it's immediately going to be not something that you can trade. So it's not going to be something that you could list on a market board or be able to trade to another player like an FC member or something like that. It's just generally speaking going to be yours and yours alone. Likewise, we have a few different systems that I'll introduce later in the game, like you could sell it to an NPC, you could desynthesize it, but I'll introduce that in a later video. And I should say before I continue that you are going to hear a lot of things like attributes, stats, primary stats, secondary stats, all of this stuff, and materia. Don't worry so much about that. I will cover that in actually the next video, so the 4th video of this series, but I cannot really explain weapons without at least touching on those words. So taking this gladiator weapon, after unique untradeable at the top, we can see the name, and likewise, this is the honor bound weapon. But what we can see is that this name is actually changing to a little bit of a cross or a plus sign, and then it says Aether Lux Replica. And so what the actual name of this weapon is the one without a cross or a plus sign. When you see this plus sign, this means that someone did something called a glamour onto this, which if you come from World of Warcraft, this means the same thing as transmog. It basically means that you change the appearance of that weapon to look like something else. So our honor bound weapon, or my honor bound weapon, I looked at it and I'm like, this is okay. It's not really my style. I wanted to change it up, and so I changed the appearance to Aether Lux Replica. And so you're gonna likewise see this plus icon over the little, the little thumbnail, the little image representation in this corner of the weapon, and that just means that I've used a glamour on it. I've changed its appearance. But whenever you're looking at someone else's gear or looking at a piece of gear, generally speaking, if you see that cross, it just means that someone used a different appearance on it. Then after that, we can see underneath the thumbnail image that says Gladiator's Arm. So likewise, this is a throwback to the original class that I chose for this particular job, being Gladiator. And so likewise, you're going to see this for every other job, every other class in the game, is if I say hover over a ninja weapon, it's going to say Rogue's Arm. If I hover over a bard's weapon, it's going to say Archer's Arm. And so this is what I was really saying about particular weapon type is only going to be used by a particular job and not any others. Like, you're not going to see a bow used suddenly by like a thaumaturge. The weapons are definitely bound to that particular class. And so after that stat, we get into things like physical damage, auto attack, and delay. So delay means the delay between each of your auto attacks that you're going to use. Auto attack isn't directly the amount of auto attack damage that you're going to do. There's a lot more equations involved in this, especially for melee DPS. But what happens is that this is basically a modifier on how much damage you're going to do. Likewise, higher auto attack value here from a weapon means that you're going to do more damage. But likewise, with the numbers that we're currently playing with that you've probably seen in some of my videos, 92 is definitely a poor portrayal of how much auto attack damage is actually going to be done. Now, physical damage is going to be 124 on this weapon, which is going to seem radically low. Absolutely. And likewise, this is better left for a theory crafting video that I'm going to do in a future series, but 124 is going to be your primary driver for modifying how much total damage this job does. And in terms of how significant that 124 is, it is very significant. This number, especially when we talk about secondary stats, is going to seem very small, but have no doubt that this physical damage that you're seeing right now is going to be the primary driving force. Generally speaking, people say, as a rule of thumb, go for the most physical damage you can, or magic damage. These are going to be the most important things, this weapon damage, this physical damage here, and then go for your primary stat, and then go for secondary. But that is best left for the stats video, so I'm going to cut myself off right there. The next thing that we can see is we have item level 485 on this weapon, which item levels are probably best explained as keeping track of a system of progression where higher item level weapons or gear in general are going to be more powerful than lower item level ones. And so likewise, you're going to see 485. That's not even the best this patch, but it is pretty good. And so likewise, this weapon, if you compared it to like an item level 200, this one will win every single time in terms of output. But if you compared this to like 505, which is going to be your best in slot weapon that you can get for completing Shiva Savage or Ultimate Raids this tier, is that is going to beat out this weapon. So generally speaking, higher item level means stronger, and so generally you're going to want to go for higher item levels. Another thing after that is it says PLD here, and so that's referring to Paladin. It's just using the 3-letter abbreviation of the name. Like Summoner, for instance, is SMN, or Blue Mage is BLU, but this is just referring to like the job in this particular instance. And then the thing after that is level. And so this means that you have to be level 80 to use this. So like if you somehow got honor bound weapon at like level 50 or level 2, you couldn't equip it. You wouldn't be allowed to do that. And so basically these are requirements that if you want to use this weapon, you'd better be Paladin and you'd better be level 80. After that, you see something called Advanced Melding Forbidden, and I want to make a video specifically on Materia, but this basically means that you are given the slots of Materia on this weapon and you're not allowed to do something called over melding. More on that later. That is definitely a more advanced topic, definitely not appropriate for this video. After that, you see bonuses section where you see things like strength, determination, vitality, and tenacity here. I will definitely explain what each of these stats do in the next video, but for now, I want to highlight that on the character sheet that we have something called attributes. And so this involves things like strength, dexterity, vitality, intelligence, and mind. And so hovering over strength, this is going to be a long block of text, but we get a tooltip saying affects physical damage dealt by the gladiator's arms, marauder's arms, puglist's, lancers, conjurer's, thaumaturge, blah 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 arm. But what this is that this is going to be primarily used by physical DPS, so this is going to include things like the Lancer, it's going to include things like the Monk, it's going to include things like the tanks, and so this basically modifies how much you are actually going to be doing in terms of damage. And that's about as much I want to go for there. But the main thing that I want to say here is that these primary attributes here are going to be much bigger factors in your total damage equation than what we're going to get into next. So next we see offensive properties and physical properties, mental properties, defensive on this character's side sheet. Hovering back over the weapon, we can see things like vitality, tenacity, and determination. Actually, vitality is a primary attribute, ignore me. but we see determination and tenacity here. And so if you actually look on the sheet, you can see under role that we have tenacity and piety. What all of these are is that these are secondary stats. And so probably the best way to explain what these do is that these are like the cherry on top of the cake. Like, let's say that physical damage on your weapon is the actual cake itself. Then let's say that the attributes are going to be like the whipped cream on top of the cake. And let's go with sprinkles and the cherry. These stats, these determination, tenacity, direct hit, critical hit rate, skill speed, spell speed, all of these are like the sprinkles on top and the cherries on top. These are not the actual core of the cake, but these are going to augment the cake and make you do a little bit more this way, a little bit more that way. Some of them make you attack faster, some of them make you critical hit more, some of them just increase your damage flat out. But that again is best for next video. But generally speaking, when you look at the weapon, you see all of these bonuses here, and this is going to be very important. And likewise, the higher eye level weapon, you can expect these bonuses to be much higher. And likewise, people are probably already going like, okay, I have 4 on 9 strength and 124 physical damage. This physical damage, you're lying to me. This is much smaller number. And that's definitely at face value true. But if you look at some of the theory crafting videos that I'm going to try and post out right now, or if you go to acmorning.com already and look at some of these calculations, you'll see that the actual equation that the game engine takes care of, that you don't need to really worry about unless you're looking into the theory of it, is that the physical damage is going to be much more significant in the equation than strength or the secondary stats. And so that's why you're seeing kind of these strange numbers here. The next section is going to be Materia. And so likewise, in this honor-bound weapon for the Paladin, you can see that there's 5 Materia slots. And in particular, I've just slotted them all with critical hit. So Materia is going to be covered later, as I said, but as a quick rundown is you can think of all of those secondary stats, like those sprinkles and the cherry that you put on top of the cake. They're not the whipped cream, they're not the cake, but it lets you sprinkle on exactly what you kind of want to gear your character more towards. Likewise, you can see that, hey, I like my critical hits, and I really do. And so I just slotted 5 critical hit materia into this. And likewise, you're gonna notice if I just hover even over some different gear in my inventory, that you can see some of them only have like 2 slots. And actually, if I go to another window, yeah, you can see that these things like the Eden Gate Ring of Healing, this only has 1 materia slot in it. And in fact, there's pieces of gear I'm pretty sure that have literally no, yeah, like take this Valentine Rose shoes, this doesn't even have materia on it, like at all. And so generally speaking, the higher level you get, the more customization you get, and you can really think about these as flex slots. Let's say you want your character to just attack faster. Okay, then you're going to be slotting in either skill speed or spell speed into these slots. Okay, you want to hit criticals more? Okay, then do like I did and slot in more critical hit materia. And so really this is going to allow you to kind of customize the way that you want your character to go. And why I say that the sprinkles on top is that this is not going to suddenly make up, like say I had all of these 60 critical hit materia, which, what is it, 60 times 5 is going to be 300. So I have 300 more crit on this weapon. That 300 more crit is not going to suddenly make up for physical damage on the weapon being lower, but it is going to generally push my character more in that direction. And likewise, as I said earlier, we have weapon, we have head, body, arm, belt, leg, foot, accessory gears as well. All of these are going to have those different materials on them. And so definitely when you just look at one particular piece of gear, it is a little underwhelming. Totally agree with you. Absolutely agree with you. But it's like the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And if you have a particular character with all these secondary stats, they really do add up to be quite a significant bonus on what your character can actually do. And so now let's get into the next section. And so this is going to involve things like repairs, materia, and other subsystems that I think are out of scope for this video. But just to be complete on equipment, condition refers to how much durability a weapon has, basically. And so when you're playing this game, you can get involved in, how to say it? Basically, in this game, the more you use a piece of gear, or the more that you die, the more likely you are going to have a piece of gear break. And so each piece of gear in this game has a certain set amount of durability to it. And some pieces of gear don't really break that much when you die, but the specifics of that, honestly, I don't even know, because it's not that important of a system to really keep track of, as long as you keep your gear repaired. But what you can do is that you can go to particular NPCs, like take this independent arms mender here. This guy here, if you go and talk to him, he can repair all of your gear in one fell swoop that you have equipped, just with a little bit of go. So this is just a way, I guess, probably to tackle gil inflation, if anything, but in reality it's like durability's here, but I've never really felt like, oh, I can't repair my gear right now because I'm too poor. I've never really felt that. I think that as soon as people start talking about durability and repairs, I think that durability in this game is fairly well balanced. It's something that you have to check very rarely. I think that maybe I check like once a week. I guess it depends on how much I'm wiping to content, but very rarely do I need to even worry about it. It's something that's definitely accessible, and so I really wouldn't worry too much about, oh my gosh, what's the condition of this? This condition has to be 100% or everything's gonna go and explode, and really don't worry about it. I know that sounds kind of ridiculous, but I really wouldn't worry about it. The next thing is Spirit Bond, and Spirit Bond is definitely a more advanced thing. This is something that even I myself haven't really participated too much in doing, but basically, Spirit Bond represents how much you've used a particular piece of gear. And actually, I should circle back and say, condition, Spirit Bond, repair level, materials, quick repairs, any of this doesn't impact your stats at all. Like, having a higher condition weapon doesn't mean that it does like double damage. Having a more Spirit Bond weapon doesn't mean it does more damage. These are completely distinct systems. Sorry, I should have made that clear actually at the start. These are completely distinct systems, so don't worry about that. But Spirit Bond refers to just how much you've used a weapon. And so you form a bond with that particular piece of gear. And that's kind of weird to me after finishing Relic questline, but that is what it is. And basically, Spirit Bond, once you hit 100% Spirit Bond, you can break down that item and get certain lucrative items. I personally haven't done that much in the past, and definitely not much recently. I just haven't had a need to, but I know in the past that it was definitely very popular to get particular pieces of materia, to get a particular piece of equipment, Spirit Bond, all the way to 100, and then to turn it in and break it down and get stuff like materia or certain valuable items. The next thing is going to be repair level. And so repair level refers to the level of a crafter needed in order to repair this yourself. So we previously showed you that you could go to an independent arms mender or like a repair NPC, and they're honestly all over the place. But for crafters or people like myself who craft fairly often, it's very much a convenience measure, but not so much so that it's like game breaking at all. Like, there's repair NPC everywhere. But I can repair my gear at any particular time as long as I have blacksmith level 70 for honor bound at least. And different pieces of gear are going to require different crafters. Again, this is a little bit more advanced, but I'm trying to just explain all of these the best way I can. And likewise, when you're repairing it yourself, if you look at this material section, it says grade 7 dark matter. That's just an item that you need in your inventory in order to perform those repairs. Quick repairs is just going to be referring to how much money it's going to cost to actually repair the gear. In this instance, you can see the condition is pretty good. So likewise, 0 gil because it doesn't need repairs. And then materia melding. Again, you can go to NPCs to meld materia, but you can also meld it yourself once you have a class high enough. And so it says Disciple of the Hand level 80. So that means any crafter to level 80, and you can meld materia into this. And then it says things like extractable, projectable, desynthesizable. These are all just specific subsystems. Like extractable means can you rip the material out, desynthesizable means can you desynthesize the weapon, and since this is a relic weapon, I am glad that the answer is N for no. And then projectable means that can you actually like project this weapon onto another one for appearance, and so likewise you can. Shop selling price is none. Likewise, it's a relic weapon, you won't really want to do it. But if you hover over some of the other gear, like let's look at this Toadskin Bray, you can see that shop selling price is actually something, and that it says for how many gil that it sells. You can see that this one is extractable, projectable, and desynthesizable with 30. Again, desynthesizing system is a little bit more advanced than I want to get into here, but basically it's the system where you can break down gear into little components that you can then use for other things. And yeah, that pretty much sums up all of those specific items. And then yeah, that basically does it for your introduction to the gear system in this game. Other things that I can say about gear is, yeah, that you are gonna be given a individual armory chest, and so this is accessible. Hotkeys involve things like if you press I, then you bring up your normal inventory, but if you want to bring up your armory chest, then you hold down the control key, then press I, and then you bring up the armory chest. Likewise, I'm not familiar with the controller system if you are on PlayStation, but essentially you can bring up a separate armory chest, and then likewise you have access to things like weapons, hat, body, you have gloves, all kind of in this exact same order as you expected it for like left hand side, right hand side from the character screen. And yeah, that about does it for this section. And yeah, hope to catch you in the next video. And likewise, do you have any concerns about the equipment section or any questions about it? If you do, please let me know down in the comment section down below. And likewise, any likes and any subscribes go a long way to helping me. And so if you want to help support me in this channel, please consider hitting that like button and smashing that subscribe button. Am I doing this right? I don't even know what I'm supposed to say for that. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope that I'll catch you on the next video. Take care and have a fantastic day.